It is Friday, August 3rd, 2018. It is 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, and so you know what time it is. It's time for a little bit of coin metal. And it was a relatively sedate get your ass kicked at Jiu-Jitsu Friday. We were a little bit light on our instruction, as our typical instructor was not there. But Jacob did fill in for him relatively well. As far as what we covered, we were going to cover a whole bunch of different stuff. But mostly it was a lot of reps. And honestly, I felt it was a good concentration for the class because I don't feel like I do get enough reps with the techniques. I mean, I'm only now starting to really feel kind of tight with regard to my my arm bar, and my triangle is starting to cinch up a little bit. But so today was more of a review and what do you call it? Just repetitions, just doing a lot of reps. And like I said, I'm thankful for that because I just don't feel like I get enough of it. I mean, I would really like it if class in this is just varies from instructor to instructor, but I really like the classes where we cover 2, maybe 3 techniques and just drill the fuck out of them, and then have maybe like a 5-minute sparring at the end. But you know, more concentrating on just one technique and just or 1 or 2 techniques and just dissecting the fuck out of it and really getting a lot of reps in. And so we did a sweep from if we have have our opponents in full guard. We did one nice sweep from that. We also did a cross arm grab sweep, and a few other things. I mean, I didn't really internalize a lot of the names of things. I just did reps, and so yeah, it wasn't as exciting as usual. And normally I get my ass kicked, but we didn't do any sparring at the end, which is fine. Like I said, I felt the concentration on repetitions really helped, you know, and I think that was the class format I kind of prefer. I don't know, I kind of like a 2-hour class. I think that would just be awesome, where, you know, you spend like a half an hour warming up, a solid hour on technique, in hour and change, and just getting reps and drilling and reps and drilling and reps and drilling, and then doing a teeny tiny bit of sparring, at least a little bit, just to see if it stuck right off. But yeah, so like I said, we didn't do any sparring today, but it was okay. I mean, I like the excitement of sparring and whatnot, but just concentrating on the technique and really getting into the technical end of it, I really like that a lot. But with that, let's go ahead and throw into some music. I know it's not a terribly long intro, but like I said, we weren't really heavy on terribly exciting stuff in jiu-jitsu today. Not as much as normal. Like I said, the sparring usually gives me the full-on adrenaline rush, you know, drenched in sweat kind of feeling, and we didn't have one of those classes today, but nonetheless, I feel like I got a lot out of it. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw into some music, and I'm all the way down here on prong, and so that's definitely how we're going to open it. And what the hell? Compulsive Future Projection, First Dance, here on Coin Metal. And that was Disturbed with Stupefy. And with that, I do have plenty of tabs open in the old browser today. Apparently Luke is dead. Checking that in my my browser, my Twitter feed here. The ever trusty Twitter feed brings us excitement and much mirth in the day. Anyway, I want to start this episode off with a article from Motherboard, and this is like something that I didn't anticipate seeing at this time. I was really expecting, honestly, I was hoping more people would be mining, and that there wouldn't be the big concentration of miners that there are. However, it turns out that not everything with regard to cryptocurrency and its power demands is such a bad thing. And so I got this thing on Motherboard. It was authored today, August 2nd, yesterday, August 2nd, 2018. This is by Jordan Pearson, so yes, penis. Cryptocurrency miners are building their own electricity infrastructure. Canadian company DMG Blockchain is expanding its mining operation in British Columbia with its own electrical substation. Access to cheap electricity can make or break a cryptocurrency mining operation, and firms angling to strike it rich in an industry where delays can and will cost digital money will do just about anything to get it as soon as they can. The latest move in the quest for bargain basement kilowatt hours as quickly as possible, building out local power grids with bespoke electrical substations. Canadian company DMG Blockchain is building what it hopes will be a fully functioning substation near southern British Columbia town of Castlegar, which is electrified by hydropower. When I spoke to Stephen Eluski, who leads corporate development for DMG, over the phone, he told me that building the substation cost millions of dollars and required the company to build its own access road to haul equipment to the site. The goal, to plug it into the local power grid and have it power DMG's expanding mining operations by September. Quote, at the end of August, we'll go through a commissioning process where the utility will test everything as a completed substation and make sure that the town doesn't blow up when we flip the switch, Ilescu told me over the phone. Industrial cryptocurrency mining is the largely automated process of setting up hundreds or even thousands of computers to guess numbers all day long in the hopes of finding a value that solves a block of transaction data, adding it to a blockchain. I say a, it says the a blockchain, a distributed ledger that keeps track of everyone's digital transactions and coins. Miners receive a reward in the form of new cryptocurrency and user fees, making it potentially lucrative if you can find electricity cheap enough to make a profit, usually far below the rates that residents pay. There's a global rush to find cheap power and set up shop as soon as possible. In hydropower-rich Quebec, for example, so many miners have lined up to buy mining operations that the provincial power utility put a moratorium on new applications and asked the Energy Board for guidance on how to proceed. Dude, let that shit in. Let them make money. Fuck. Ilescu said the company is working closely with the local utility and has written approval for the project. When I reached out to the local utility in Castlegar, or to Fortis BC, spokespeople declined to discuss specifics of the DMG project since it does not, quote, discuss customer or potential customer information without their consent, but noted that, quote, in projects of this nature, the company in question and Fortis BC sign a facilities interconnection agreement. The substation must also be approved by a professional engineer licensed by the province. Quote, Fortis BC has been approached by companies mining cryptocurrency over the last few years. Fortis spokesperson wrote me in an email, quote, These operations typically have significant electricity needs due to the amount of computer hardware employed. As a public utility operating in BC under the Utilities Commission Act, we have an obligation to serve customers in our service area subject to certain conditions and restrictions, including crypto mining operations. Dude, you guys should just fucking do it. The utility declined to discuss the price point for DMG's power, citing that it wanted to protect the privacy of customers or potential customers. Alescu also declined to go into detail about how much DMG expects to pay for power once the substation is operational, citing concerns over competition. Quote, "We've set up an arrangement that for someone else to jump in, we're kind of like first in line," Alescu told me. "I don't want to say that we have a formal right of first refusal in case someone big did come in, and that's why we're very sensitive talking about our power acquisition strategy. There might be a rush if people better understood what we're doing." DMG has experience in this arena. Both Alescu and COO Sheldon Bennett previously worked for mining firm Bitfury, which opened mining operations in Alberta that were later acquired in a reverse takeover by Vancouver firm Hut 8, which expanded the mining operation and began trading on the TSX Venture Exchange this year. Data centers purchasing their own power substations, as opposed to getting one from the utility, isn't unheard of. Switzerland-based multinational ABB, for example, sells the equipment and has marketed it to data centers. For DMG blockchain, building its own substation is all about speed. Going through the normal process of contracts and approvals to get access to a substation from the utility could take over a year, Alescu said, whereas DMG is bootstrapping its substation in the space of 6 months. Quote, "If you just leave things up to the utility, things will just naturally take a long time," Alescu said. "This isn't a beat on utilities. This is just how they are and how they've always operated. They're not used to working at Bitcoin speed. It's very different for us." If all goes according to plan, it could be the start of a trend. DMG blockchain wants to help other mining operations build out their local power grids too. Alright, now let's talk about this. They're probably building the substation in a relatively rural area. Canada does not have that many people. I mean, by comparison to the United States, I think you can fit all of Canada in a county or two of Los Angeles. You know, so they've got all this space and they've got all this access to free-flowing water all over the surface that they could be harnessing and using for electricity. And more they are doing that. I hope they are being smart about it and putting in ladders for salmon and steelhead and other anadromous species, because otherwise they're just destroying one industry in lieu of another. And that's not really a good idea. Especially because the technology of yielding electricity from, hydroelectricity, it's had some kind of a lull, I want to say. I mean, there hasn't been as much development on it as there really should be. I mean, if they applied as much brain power to hydroelectricity as they did to, say, nuclear power, or better yet, gasoline, fuck, we'd all be in flying cars. I'd be in a building that's flying in the air right now. I mean, come on now. Anyway, point being that the progress, and these guys even say it, the progress of expansion of the power grid by the electricity boards is relatively slow by comparison to the actual demand that miners have. Now, imagine what that's going to do, though, to the price for the people in the local vicinity, it's probably going to go down significantly, because this miner, they're going to be buying shit tons of electricity, right? And so they're going to be running a shit ton of electricity to that local area. So it's like everybody between the power source and their substation is going to be benefiting from the existence of that substation. You know, and it's funny because when people talk about the electricity demands of Bitcoin mining and cryptocurrency mining, they always talk about it with negative connotations. You know, they never talk about it in terms of what that mining is going to bring to the locality that it's coming to. They always concentrate on the fact that it does take up a decent amount of room, it does take a shit ton of electricity, and that a relatively small number of people are needed in order to maintain it. What they don't bother to consider is that because of that, a relatively small number of people get to divvy up a relatively large sum of money. And they are going to spend that money. They're not just going to be spending it on their mining operation. They're going to be spending it on houses and cars and boats and vacations and meals out and hotel stays and vacations that they wouldn't be able to do otherwise. See, otherwise they would be like flipping burgers and working 3 jobs or some shit like that, and just barely living on what they're able to make from that. Now, I understand that, you know, some people actually enjoy flipping burgers, and there's nothing really wrong with that. But the thing is that not everybody wants to do that. Some of us want to make a lot of money and do something else. You know, or do something else, and having a decent sum of money kind of helps that along. But anyway, yeah, so you can bitch about the presence of miners, but again, the build out that it would have taken to get a power station out there or a substation out there, it would have been another decade, according to the timeline of the power grid people, the utility board or whatever. Yeah, they would have been another decade before they bothered to build that infrastructure, because there really wouldn't have been any demand for it. But now, the substation is going to be meeting the demands of this mining operation and possibly others in the vicinity, and that in turn, I believe, will make it cheaper for the people living in the area, in the direct area. That's going to be prosperous for a lot of people. It wouldn't have happened otherwise. All of the people in the local area are probably going to get a lower rate on their electricity because they got this big ass power suck of a mining operation in their local area that's building out their fucking infrastructure. I mean, really. I know I keep dancing over the same dirt here, but you got to consider the impact of that versus the other things that are said about miners. You know, that we're sucking up all kinds of electricity, and oh my god, we got to kick those guys out because they're going to hike the electricity through the roof. Yeah, whatever. We're probably going to create more demand for hydroelectricity, and so there'll be a demand for putting in another dam that produces hydroelectricity. Now again, as long as you do two things with regard to the design of a dam, I really don't have any problem with it. Number one, you have to see to the natural flow of the river. This means that your flow of your over your dam has to be coming over the top. It can't be coming from the bottom. I know you get more water pressure going from the bottom, but there's other ways to harness the power of the water coming through. Point being that while you restrict the water flow and build it up behind the dam, when you do that, the water itself behind the dam will stratify according to temperature. And see, normally the river would be about maybe 20, 30 feet deep, and there'd be some deep, cool pools to it. But the water would be stratified to where you've got the warm water on top and the cold water on the bottom. Well, see, if your dam feeds from the bottom, you're feeding cold water from the lake, from the bottom of the lake, into the river. So it's going to be about 30 degrees colder than it's supposed to be. That's going to kill all the fucking life going down the river, or at least a lot of it, because everything is dependent on temperature. Everything is dependent on temperature. You got to think, every organism that lives in the water doesn't have any choice but to live with the temperature of the water. And so when you drop the average temperature of the water by 30 degrees, you take it well outside of their comfort zone, and they die off in the local vicinity of the dam, or at least until the water gets warm enough running through. So, water's got to come off the top of the dam. And there's a second reason for that, is that you want to allow for passage of fish like salmon and steelhead and whatnot, because the way they do things is they come into the freshwater, they spawn in the freshwater, and then they go back out to the saltwater, right? Or they die in the freshwater, and their progeny have to go back out to the ocean. Well, we fucked all that up. We just built these huge fucking dams without any flows going around them up here in Oregon. And the results have been disastrous. We've lost a lot of our salmon runs because of it. And that's caused a lot of localities that were kind of built up around the presence of the fish. And so, one of my kind of goals is to fix that in this state. Or everybody tells me it takes a lot of money, but I think there's enough people out there that like fish. I think there's enough people out there that like the ocean that maybe they'd be putting some money to it if they had the opportunity, like a ICO or something like that. Not that I'm going to launch anything like that, just giving you all some ideas. Anyway, I want to get back into some crypto stuff here. And so yeah, we went through here DMG blockchain. They're going to rebuild the goddamn infrastructure of Canada and kick them into the 21st century. They'll be the most efficient people on planet Earth. Such is my hope. So we can get rid of this. And here we go. The next one. And now this one is really interesting to me. And this one has a lot of implications. Okay? I mean, like, a lot of implications. Let me get a sip off this and rehydrate here for a moment. We'll be right back with you. So yes, as I was saying, massive implications, at least in my mind, because this particular group has been fighting for quite a while to force Bitcoin to operate in such a way that all the transactions are done off-chain, and all of your purchases and transactions that you would do with Bitcoin, that all that shit will happen via their Lightning Network bullshit, right? And so there's been an anticipation that a significant number of miners will eventually abandon the Bitcoin blockchain and go over to Bitcoin Cash and support it instead, because miners have gotten sick of the way that Blockstream has been running Bitcoin, or running the development path of Bitcoin. And so I've been thinking about it, and I've thought for a while now that there's been a desire to corrupt Bitcoin fully, specifically because if it were made to operate the way that regulated entities are, the legacy system, if it were made to where you needed third parties just to process your transactions, then all of the regulatory frameworks that already exist would be applied to Bitcoin. Okay, and because there would be a legal precedent for all of the shit being compliant, that the government would look toward the rest of the cryptosphere and say, all right, now you all have to comply with these bullshit laws that we have forced Bitcoin to comply to by corrupting it from the inside and forcing it to change. Now, see, number one, I think that's a plan that it could work. It could really work. But I don't think it really will. And the reason being is that Bitcoin in and of itself has drawn the interest of people for a variety of reasons, but above all, it's drawn the interest of people because it's allowed us to transact regardless of what our government is doing. When the government wants to tweak the screws on people by telling their Federal Reserve or their central bank equivalent, go ahead and hop up that interest rate, would you? We need to put a little pressure on, or better yet, they tell the bank, hey, go ahead and print up a few billion. We need to borrow some money to run a war somewhere or something like that. Don't worry, the public can handle it. We'll put it on their back. And so you get to bear that burden, right? Well, now you don't have to. Now you can transact in a medium that doesn't suffer the depreciation when they have the central bank fill up the coffer full of IOUs. And that pressure is no longer on you. There's a relief mechanism out there that you can use that doesn't involve them at all. See, I think that idea in and of itself, and the fact that you can participate in it, is so fucking powerful. So fucking powerful. That regardless of what happens to Bitcoin, regardless of what happens to Bitcoin Cash, regardless of what happens to any cryptocurrency currently in circulation, if it becomes too corrupted, if it becomes too regulated, if it becomes too friction-oriented in any way, shape, or form, either in the on-ramps, in the exchanges, maybe even in OTC trading, the people will go dark with this shit, and then you will lose a lot of what you've got right now. Because I don't think the desire to transact in currencies that aren't manipulated by governments and central banks, I don't think that desire is going to go away if Bitcoin gets corrupted. I don't think it's going to go away if Ethereum gets corrupted, or any other cryptocurrency currently in circulation. I think Bitcoin showed that it's possible. Even if it's a little tougher now, it is still possible. That's why the vast majority of people that use Bitcoin still use regular old Bitcoin wallets, starting with a 1 on their address. See, to me, that's the big indicator right there. It shows that the true will of the users, the real users, not just a bunch of dummy accounts and not just a bunch of fucking sock puppets, the people that actually transact in Bitcoin use it the same way that they've been using it since the beginning. I don't think that's going to end no matter what they do to it. But anyway, the reason I bring that up, I got this article here on Bitcoin.com, or news.bitcoin.com. Blockstream buys mining equipment from Chinese manufacturer InnoSilicon. Blockstream, one of the largest Bitcoin Core funding contributors, has evidently bought a lot of cryptocurrency mining equipment from the Chinese electronics hardware manufacturer InnoSilicon. Weird. Does this mean that the company is setting up its own mining center? Blockstream buys mining equipment. Publicly available international shipping data, a bill of lading, reveals that a large amount of silicon mining rigs have been imported from China to the U.S. by Blockstream, the Bitcoin core company focused on developing side chains. 4 containers holding 62 pallets marked as TI were sent from Hong Kong and arrived on July 26, 2018 at the Port of Newark, New Jersey. Quote, TI is very likely referring to Terminator by InnoSilicon, the ASIC manufacturer's SHA-256 miner, whose latest version units are sold for $11.18 USD each. Oh, that's not much. And with each pallet possibly holding up to 72 units, this would mean that Blockstream could have bought about 4,650 Terminators for a total value of almost $5.2 million. The company has not announced it is opening a new mining center as of yet, but such a large order would definitely suggest that is an imminent possibility. The typical hash rate of a Terminator unit reaches 17.2 terahashes per second, giving such a center almost 80 petahashes per second. Background information. Blockstream Co. was co-founded by Adam Back, Gregory Maxwell, Peter Wheel, and others back in 2014, and is still headed by Adam Back, the CEO. It is now mainly known for developing implementation prototypes for the Lightning Network. If you are not familiar with the company and want to get more background information about it, David Shares recently published an op-ed about why is Blockstream working with former spies. We're definitely going to follow that one up. InnoSilicon is a design company offering low-cost, high-performance, cross-foundry, fully customizable solutions. It provides devices in such areas as tablets, cell phones, TVs, cameras, networking equipment, and more. When Halong Mining launched its Dragon Mint rigs earlier this year, there were specifications that the machines were just rebranded in InnoSilicon Terminators. Oh wow. And here's a tweet by Cobra. Halong Mining is a scam. They sold rebadged InnoSilicon BTC miners obtained through dubious means and sold fake non-existent miners for other algorithms. Customers still waiting for those to ship. They are huge scammers. What could Blockstream be doing with this much InnoSilicon equipment other than set up its own mining center? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Yeah. And so, let's see. Alright, here we go. This is, I'm going through the comments here. This is by Props on Brain Off FPV. I bet they won't be using Raspberry Pis as nodes. What's the frequency, Kenneth? Decentralization FTW. Decentralization. Let's see. Melter Gambler 3 days ago. Maybe they realized that miners can spam the post-fork BTC chain with high fee transactions and then mine their own fees back, sending fees to the moon without costing them anything. This may be an attempt to preserve the post-fork BTC chain and thus their company, in spite of having broken the long-term incentives of the miners on that chain. ZO, I think they want to mine. Let's see. Ansel Khan, your spy theory is a dumb as flat earthers theory. At least flat earthers ones sound better. Go away is the next one here. Is that guy an employee of Blockstream? Yes. Is that, or is that not his expertise and training? Yes. That is his expertise. What other reason would a company have to hire such a person? When Core and their social circle began repeating over and over that everybody was stealing their power, control, and name. That was the power grab and name steal. Social manipulation is that guy's expertise. The only reason to hire him. Bitcoin was always peer-to-peer digital cash. A limited settlement layer for rent-seeking middlemen is a new direction made by Blockstream/Core. And we're definitely going to vote that one up because that's true. So yeah, there you have it. I think that line might be it right there. The let's see here, where is it? Trying to find the line in here. What could Blockstream be doing with this much silicon equipment other than set up its own mining center? I think that's exactly what they're doing. They're setting up their own mining center to preserve the post BTC4 chain. This guy's Meltor Gambler. This line. This may be an attempt to preserve the post fork BTC chain and thus their company, in spite of having broken the long-term incentives of the miners on that chain. And it's absolutely true. They pretty much have. And I don't doubt the high transaction fee thing, because it's been my contention for a long time now that that's the only reason they've been so interested in keeping the blocks at 1 megabyte, is that they want to make that the most expensive real estate on planet Earth. Millions and millions of dollars per kilobyte. That's their whole vision for Bitcoin, and to kick you the fuck out of it. But now, we need to reflect on something about this, is that Microsoft was doing the same thing back in the 90s, where they would buy up any kind of competitor. You know, if they couldn't buy them, they would copy their shit down to the bit, rename everything, and then patent it. And then as soon as they went to court, they would destroy the person with several large lawyers, and they would go out of business because Microsoft would destroy them. And of course, they did social media campaigns and all that other stuff. That didn't just start with Facebook and Twitter and all that. There was plenty of that shit going on beforehand. A lot of disinformation campaigns and such. So none of this shit is new. This is all to be expected. This isn't the first time these people have played this game. They did it with television. They did it with telephones. They did it with radio. And they're doing it with the internet, and they're doing it with cryptocurrency. They did it with automobiles too. You know, and they set up a regulatory structure that's specifically intended to kick you the fuck out of it. It's like, oh, only the rich people get to play in this now. You know, this is something that people demand, so only rich people get to play here. Well, you know what? That's not going to really work out very well with cryptocurrencies, because as soon as the rich people take over one thing and patent a whole bunch of other bullshit, all of this stuff is built on open source software. And so when you just stick with the open source elements of things, they can't get you on patents because it's called prior art. Prior art. Remember that. Prior art. It's very, very important, because you'll hear about IBM patenting this and Microsoft patenting that. If they're deriving their works from open source stuff, it's only a matter of challenging them in court. And all you have to prove is that their shit was based on prior art if they try flexing a patent against you. Check your sources, you know, make sure that your sources haven't been bought up and their fucking IP isn't really part of somebody else's IP, and they're just not flexing their nuts on the patent for it, and so on and so forth. And if there isn't an open source variant of what you want to do, make one. All the tools are out there to do it. But the less you rely on these people, people like Microsoft, people like IBM, the less you rely on their software, the better off you are. And same thing with Blockstream and Lightning Labs and all those other guys. They have patented fucking IP that they can flex their nuts and exercise their licenses over however they choose. And they have millions of dollars and they have lawyers, which you don't have. And even if you do have, they probably have more. Anyway, continuing on. This one was authored on July 25th, 2018 by David Shares. Most definitely, yes. Penis. This is on Bitcoin, news.bitcoin.com. Why is Blockstream working with former spies? Blockstream is working with former national spies. The question is, why on earth would a cryptocurrency company have the need to employ former spies? Also read, tie a message to any location using the BCH file. No, I'm not going to. Take a journey back in time if you would. On October 23rd, 2014, Blockstream goes public and announces funding the formation of their company. Shortly after Blockstream was incorporated, they received $50 million in venture capital from AXA, Coastal Ventures, Horizon Ventures, etc., some of the most powerful venture firms in the world. The Blockstream board of directors are all bankers. In the summer of 2015, all of the primary Bitcoin communities, such as r/Bitcoin, mailing lists, Bitcoin Talk wikis, etc., began massive censorship campaigns against any and all topics that had to do with scaling Bitcoin beyond its 1 megabyte limit, which, by the way, was temporarily added by Satoshi Nakamoto back in 2010 as a stopgap measure to prevent spam in the early days. In December 2015, it quickly became apparent to everyone that Bitcoin was being hotwired for a settlement system. As they say, the rest is history. So here we are today. Most of what has transpired since the launch of Blockstream remains uncontested to everyone outside of Bitcoin Core, which is why they are perceived as a cult. However, it is a little-known fact that they are working with former spies. Clearly, they didn't want anyone to know this. Enter in Ben Scannell. Bill is a former self-admitted national spy for the United States, focused on signal and human intelligence. My apologies. SIGINT, HUMINT. Bill entered the world of cryptocurrency and Bitcoin sometime around 2015. Below is a tweet about Bitcoin while at DEF CON. Tweet, WOA, Ryan Castelli of White Ops demos Bitcoin, Cracker, blah, blah, blah. Okay. He has given full talks about his former spy days. For example, one of his more infamous talks is on the story of a secret NSA listening post in Berlin back in the 1980s, where he worked on SIGINT, HUMINT. Make sure to watch the Q&A at the end where he gets roasted by the audience. As you can see from some of his recent social media postings, he is still very much in love with SIGINT. SIGINT FTW. For those unaware, SIGINT and HUMINT still play critical roles for spy agencies across the world as a means to gather and analyze human intelligence. In France's 2012 presidential election, it was discovered through WikiLeaks that all major French political parties were targeted for infiltration by the CIA's HUMINT and electronic SIGINT spies in the 7 months leading up to the election. In this short clip from Scannell's Berlin talk, he is talking about being selective in his targeting and smart spying techniques. In another lecture, Scannell talks about using spying intelligence to control. By the way, did you notice the symbol he used as his background for his talk? It is a very subtle but important image to the Bitcoin Core community Lightning Network, and it's a big fist with a lightning bolt through it. What does that have to do with Blockstream? Well, What Bill Scannell and Blockstream don't want the general public to know is that Bill works intimately with Blockstream on their own intelligence. You see, Blockstream is running its own program in order to push their agenda so that they can control Bitcoin and profit from it. And let's see here, the thing for it. I'm trying to view this image. It's got a bunch of text on it here. In order for sidechains to work and for Blockstream to be successful, Blockstream needs to artificially keep Bitcoin blockchain at low capacity, max block size 1 megabyte, so that they can push users off the Bitcoin blockchain onto a sidechain where assets, transactions, contracts, etc. can happen. By doing this, they are forcibly, see protocol wars, able to create an environment where their solution is more desirable, creating a second premium tiered market, or tiered layer. The Bitcoin blockchain will end up being for, quote, regular users, and sidechains will be for premium users that will pay to have their assets moved with speed, consistency, and feasibility. Most damning is the admission that with Lightning Network enabled, TX fees are paid to liquidity providers, exchanges, and fees will be taken away from miners. This shows a clear motivation for exchanges to use liquid sidechains in partnership with Blockstream as part of the overall solution to reap in profits using LN. Yeah, this is on January 25th, 2016, unmasking the Blockstream business plan, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there you go. That's that part of it. So let's get back to this. Because they have so much investment capital and need to protect it at all costs in their quest to control Bitcoin, they have employed Scannell as their consultant agent to run intelligence and counterintelligence operations in the Bitcoin community. According to Scannell's own LinkedIn profile, he runs a private consulting firm where he is focused on being a, quote, strategist. Ironically, he also has past work experience listed as, quote, evil PR genius. In one LinkedIn recommendation for Scannell, the person wrote that he is, quote, a storyteller, fixer, maker. Scannell has set up his own company called Special Circumstances LLC for his private counseling. The Anchorage Daily News wrote a piece about Scannell's wife in 2016 regarding a local election in Alaska. In the article, they described Bill Scannell as, quote, a media strategist who has been known for peddling some outrageous stories and pulling some outrageous stunts to get media attention. One of the advertisements run by Scannell's wife, Michelle, during the election was a video of her opponent, Mia Costello, calling her a chicken. As it turns out, back in 2008, Scannell had his own controversy where it came to light that he was attacking opposing groups in another local election. AlaskaReport.com wrote Bill Scannell, the man outed Thursday morning by Jake Metcalf's former campaign manager Dana Krawchuk, as the person behind some nasty websites attacking Ethan Berkowitz, has resigned. Krawchuk had overheard Scannell talking about building websites specifically to attack Berkowitz. When Samson Mow started working for Blockstream in 2017 as the, quote, chief strategy officer, Bill Scannell and Samson Mow began working more closely together alongside Adam Back and others. In April of 2017, Scannell and Back both attended the 21st International Conference on Financial Cryptography and Data Security in Malta, where Scannell helped moderate a panel that Back was speaking on. Blockstream was the sponsor at the event, where others spoke as well, such as Peter Todd. On Reddit, Bitcoin.com CEO and entrepreneur Roger Ver had this to say about Scannell. Quote, this guy was with Samson when I had the debate with him in Seoul. He was clearly Samson's handler at the event. Here the two, the far left and far right, are buddied up in Economy in 2018. It's just a picture, blah blah blah. Bill Scannell inside the eyes, blah blah blah. Where does this leave us? Unfortunately, as it has been said time and time again, Bitcoin Core, BTC, has been co-opted. Many don't believe this because they are being heavily manipulated in online forums Blockstream controls. However, these revelations help to at least shine a light on what may be happening in the ecosphere. And as time moves forward, we are becoming more and more aware of how deceptive and underhanded Blockstream really is. Quote, "Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light, the truth, can do that." Op-ed disclaimer, this is an op-ed article. The opinions expressed, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, so there you have it. Hiring former spies. You know, I don't know. I've always been of the opinion that it's up to all of us to watch Bitcoin and to contribute to it. That we're all, in essence, cryptocurrency users. And that includes Bill Scannell and everybody at Blockstream Core and all that other shit. We're all cryptocurrency users, and so we're all responsible for Bitcoin. And if we do allow a small cabal of people at Blockstream dictate the entire course of Bitcoin, whose fault is that? Is it ours or is it theirs? Who has to wear that crown of blame? And you know, if they're just bumping people off by hashing more, okay, that's a fair enough fight. You know, there's all kinds of methods of winning, and not all of them include actually doing all of the effort yourself. You know, some of it is causing your opponent to quit and your opponent to win for you in various ways. And so I think that many people whose interest is buried in Bitcoin, you all need to make up your minds if you want to pay attention to Blockstream Core anymore. I really think a concerted effort should be made to seek to gank Bitcoin away from them. And I wouldn't mind if it went to the wind, because it was that way to begin with, and it worked just fine. I think there are enough people that are actually interested in the survival of Bitcoin that it will continue despite these little bumps in the road. As far as I'm concerned, it's a 140-year game. There hasn't been a currency on this earth that has existed for longer than 50 years without suffering some form of debasement. And I'm talking about even down to gold coins. 50 years, that's about the cycle before it goes out of debasement. Before it gets debased and they have to go to war and steal other people's fucking gold. So for Bitcoin to last 140 years, that'll be something. That'll be something. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. I'm feeling the need. And, yeah, a little bit of corrosion of conformity here. Vote with the bullet. Here on Coin Metal. And that was Metallica with Damage Incorporated. Oldie but goodie. You gotta like that. You have to excuse me, I was kind of crapping on Bitcointopia. I mean, they mean well and all that, but their whole project, from what it shows, it's out in the middle of a field that's currently a field. It doesn't have any houses or city or anything on it. I think that's like its natural and most positive state. So, my comment to them is I'd be far more impressed if they were trying to do this project in the middle of a burned out city. You know, so like, if you've ever been to like Chicago or Detroit or any of those big former industrial centers where, you know, they've lost like 70% of their productive capacity and they've got all these factories and shit that are basically closed. And nothing happening there, right? And I mean like large swaths of land, like huge areas. So my thought is, I'd be far more impressed if these guys were to be buying land there, work out something with the city and say, look, we want to repurpose this land. It's not doing anything as is. We're willing to take up the task of cleaning off the buildings that are currently there and, trying to recoup whatever we can on actual materials and whatnot, and building a city there. Give us a relief on the property taxes that are leaned against the property, and that kind of shit, and we'll just work it out. Again, I would be far more impressed if they were trying to start this Bitcoin-topia thing in the middle like that. It's like it serves multiple purposes. It gets rid of all the shit that's currently there. It repurposes it for human occupation. Probably have to do some sort of toxic cleanup in some areas of it. But it would be available for that kind of utilization again. Whereas right now, it's just sitting with big-ass property tax liens against it, and nobody wants to buy it and take that burden on themselves. And so it's not doing anything. And I mean, I don't give a fuck if this field only is occupied by shrews and mice and shit, like and tumbleweeds. The point is that it's not occupied by humans. Not yet. So rather than making it occupied by humans, buy a ghost town. There's a few of those in California, just towns out in the middle of nothing that nobody's living at, that are just standing there. Now, of course, some of them are cultural markers to demonstrate our history of how we got here and all that, but some of them can go. Like up here in Oregon, we've got a few areas still in, I want to say like Marcola and a few other places that were really, really big during the timber boom. And, the buildings are just there. They're not doing anything. So, again, rather than occupying completely unoccupied dirt, why not repurpose some of the stuff we've already turned into human space and get that going down? Yeah, let's see here. Last attempt was an 1855 town that is currently burning to the ground. So please, excuse me, but you don't know how hard it was to build the city. I do. I've lost lives, money, and homes in the process. Okay. Yeah, well, it's interesting. Apparently this isn't their first attempt. It's Earth that I purchased for a reason. The last attempt was an 1855 town that is currently burning to the ground. Blockchain city. So please excuse me, but you don't know how hard it is to build a city. No, I don't. I do know how hard it is to build stuff, but, building a city where it doesn't exist, I think is probably a lot tougher than building a city where one already does exist. But that's just my own perspective on it. I think there's some stuff we can give up in, a bunch of burned out buildings that, aren't doing anything right now. That seems like something we could get rid of. Anyway, I got this article here on the BitcoinNews.com, and let's check and verify, make sure this isn't just a fucking aggregated article. Okay, cool. This looks like it might be the original source. So, Japan Labor Ministry confused as crypto salaries demand increased. This is on August 3rd, 2018, and who authored this fucking thing? No attribution. So, let's continue on. Japan's labor ministry is not hiding its confusion as the Tokyo metropolitan government and venture companies requested a deregulation of the Labor Standard Act. Japan has respected the, quote, salaries and cash principle for 70 years under the Labor Standard Act. However, With the proliferation of digital money and salaries paid in cryptocurrency, withdrawing money from a bank could increasingly be unnecessary, Nikkei reported. Increasing conversion to, quote, cashless trends also seems to bring controversy. The NSSZ, National Strategic Special Zone, which is designated by the national government based on the perspectives of boosting the international competitiveness of industry and promoting the creation of centers of international economic activities, by giving priority to advanced structural reform of the economic system, together with Tokyo-based venture companies, reportedly requested a change in regulations. On February 14th, the government announced a plan to hold a National Strategic Advisory Council to discuss making salary payments onto smartphones equipped with a prepaid card function in specific zones. The government was aiming to improve convenience by remitting salaries onto a smartphone that can be used as a wallet. The whole idea also intended to make it easier for foreign workers who have difficulty opening a bank account in Japan. Wages have always been paid by cash payment under the labor standards law. However, the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare, which is under the jurisdiction of this law, said it would consider concrete measures to protect the transfer of salary when the operator of the electronic money goes bankrupt. Regional Revitalization Minister Hiroshi Kajiyama said at a press conference held on June 14th that during the advisory council of the NSSZ, he received an interesting proposal for wage payment into a prepaid card, Nikkei reported. Dorming Holding, which develops a software that can transfer salaries onto smartphones, reportedly made a presentation in front of Japan's Prime Minister Shinzo Abe himself. Quote, "We developed a software that deregulates the current state regulation to enable digital payment of wages to electronic wallets on smartphones," the company said. "It should stimulate not only payment for foreigners, but it can also be used for consumption." Governor Koike's attention was caught as Japan is seeing an increasing number of foreign workers. Such discussion started in March this year as the Tokyo Metropolitan Government proposed the idea during the Advisory Council of the NSSZ. Yuriko Koike, the governor of Tokyo, encountered an unfamiliar word of, quote, payroll card. In the U.S., such prepaid payroll card is expected to spread to over 12 million people by 2019. The payroll card is a card that can receive wages from a company without going through a bank account. Payroll prepaid cards are often used in the U.S. by companies with a large number of independent contractors. The introduction of such a card has also begun in African countries where many people do not have bank accounts in the first place. Employers are increasingly moving away from depositing paychecks into employees' bank accounts, offering instead to add them to payroll cards. Payroll cards are like debit cards. They allow employees to purchase goods and services or make cash withdrawals from ATMs. Unlike debit cards, though, there is no bank account tied to the card, and money is directly added to it by employers. In fact, employers are the only entities that can add funds to a payroll card account. Foreigners working in Japan need to have an address in Japan and a residence card that covers the period of 1 year or more if they want to open a bank account. Due to a lack of manpower, Japan is increasingly developing a foreign workforce. According to the Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare, as of October 2017, there have been 1,270,000 foreigners working in Japan, a number that increased by 18% since last year. Quote, "We have received many consultations from people not being able to open a payroll account in banks," a Tokyo government official told Nikkei. This deregulation debate is likely to bring up controversy within the government. Because the system would remove the need to transfer money into a bank account, it is expected that such a project would accelerate the concept of, quote, cashlessness. However, the Ministry of Labor would formulate such jurisdiction is extremely cautious. The Labor Standards Law, enacted in 1947, regulates payroll transfers under Article 24. As a general rule, it specifies that, quote, the company puts cash in a salary, quote, bag on payday and hands it to an employee. Nowadays, bank transfers are the most common for wage payments. However, digital money is not really considered yet. The GMO Internet Group made payment in Bitcoin as part of their salary options available this spring. Line distributes electronic money that can be used on smartphone settlements for employees as part of welfare benefit every month, separately from their salary. The Ministry of Health, Labor, and Welfare must be extremely careful in phrasing such law, as its main goal is to firstly protect the worker. If this deregulation is widely acknowledged and payments other than cash payment can be made possible, it could allow black enterprises to abuse their employees by paying their salaries with a proprietary cryptocurrency in which the value could be doubtful. What do you think of companies in Japan paying employees in crypto using a payroll card? Join the discussion in the comments below. Let's see if anybody commented on this. Nope, nobody has. Sorry, I felt the need to rehydrate. That was a long article. I think this is really interesting. However, I think this whole bank card thing is kind of stupid. Mostly because I've been paid this way, and the thing I didn't like about it was the fees. There were significant fees associated with every transaction, and it made the use of it increasingly less viable over time. And as a matter of fact, I've got an article that I that I wanted to get into that touches on that for another reason. But like I said, I think that cryptocurrencies with their open public blockchains are a superior means of payment. But you actually have to have them. And I think there's been this idea that you're going to force everybody off chain, and everybody's going to do their transactions off chain, between you and your employees, and you're going to have your employees shopping with organizations that are also hosting their own Lightning nodes, and so on and so forth. And I've always envisioned that was like what everybody was talking about when they would say blockchain. And recently there's been a bit of a dieback in companies that were considering quote-unquote blockchain solutions. And I think it's because they're starting to see that the main thrust of Bitcoin users is not towards this off-chain stuff. There's a small and apparently moderately growing community of people that are hosting nodes and all that, but that the vast majority of people who have used cryptocurrencies before, and have used Bitcoin specifically before, look at Bitcoin in that light, and say, this was a lot easier than hosting my own node and having to basically have my own ATM running just so I could use my own money. You know, when you have the option of using Bitcoin Cash and you see how it operates, and you hear people say that, hey, you know, Bitcoin used to operate like this, which it still does to some extent. You look at it and you're like, well, why do I want to host my own node and rely on third-party watchtowers to be watching all the bullshit while I'm not watching it? And give me a fucking break. It's so, by comparison to what's already available, it is so impractical and so much more PETA related as far as I'm concerned that I don't see the utility of it. And again, you know, I don't possess thousands of Bitcoin that I can put up on a node and, you know, gather fees as people bounce through my node and all that. So, you know, for me, it's not really applicable, you know. It might be something good for somebody who does have thousands upon thousands of Bitcoin that they could be escrowing people's transactions for, or whatever they call that, or they counterpartying other people's transactions. But yeah, so I think that some people were envisioning that they would have like the Lightning card, you know, and they would put Bitcoin on it, on the Lightning card account for other people, and that other people would use the Lightning card until they ran out of money, and then they would get it refilled by their employer or whoever, right? Again, I think that enough people have seen how Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are supposed to work that they look back at that model and they're like, yeah, there's too many trade-offs that are negative for that. We lose way too much certainty. You know, when I do a transaction, I'm nail biting and I'm watching the damn thing on the blockchain, and I don't care which currency I'm using. I'm watching that transaction to see when it clears, when it gets its first confirmation, and you know, when I get a notification from whichever entity that I'm sending it to that it's actually there. You know, that what I intended to pay for is now paid for with cryptocurrency, or the transaction has happened, or whatever. But the point being is that I have the certainty of watching it. You know, I can see it happening. It's not something where I have to trust somebody that it's happening. But that, again, you give that up when you put it all on the Lightning Network, because man, they don't really put this out in big print. But when it's happening off-chain, that's the only place it's happening. It's not happening anywhere else as far as the rest of the network is concerned. The rest of the network is unaware of that activity, right? And so if something fucks up and your funds get spaced somewhere along the way, the rest of the network has no idea. The rest of the network has no way to give you your money back. You're left at the disposal of whoever completes the transaction, you know, whoever closes the payment channel, and then all the payments will settle out. I've read shit that indicates that they don't intend for them ever to close, that they'll just open the payment channel and just keep refunding it. So that means that the funds that are within the payment channel, they never achieve a final state. I think that's kind of scary. And I think other people should too. Yeah, but that's just me. I'm one of those old heads that started with the beginning of this thing, and so of course I don't want to see that kind of shit happen. But like I said, this is a 140-year program. We might slightly get ahead of the fold a little bit with mining and whatnot, but I think in the longer term, it's still going to be like 120, 130 years at least. And there a lot of fucking game is going to change between now and then. You know? Anyway, let me see what else I got here. I had another article that... let's see here. Not that one, not that one. Not that one. Ah, here we go. This one is kind of interesting, and I think this is the beginning of probably what will be the push for a lot of people that are currently using Visa to be transitioning into crypto. And here it is. This is on CNBC. Kroger's California subsidiary to bar Visa credit cards amid fee dispute. This is by Thomas Frank, author, and so yes, Penis. This is authored July 30th, 2018. Kroger announced Monday that a California subsidiary will no longer accept Visa credit cards as of mid-August, as the two companies clash over payment fees and rates. Quote, Visa's rates and fees are among the highest of any credit card brand, Foodsco said in an emailed statement on Monday. Quote, the savings will be passed along to Foodsco customers in the form of low everyday prices on the items shoppers purchase most. The ban on Visa credit cards will take effect starting August 14th, and affect 21 Foodsco stores and fuel centers in Central and Northern California. Those stores in major cities like San Francisco and Sacramento will be affected by the change. Customers will still be able to use Visa debit cards, MasterCard, American Express, and Discover credit cards as usual, the statement added. Quote, there are ongoing discussions about payment technologies, Christopher Helm, Executive Vice President and Chief Information Officer at Kroger, told CNBC, quote, we have been working to get the economics right, and we are taking a step to make sure we continue to get our customers the best value. Visa said it was frustrated with Kroger's move. Visa is disappointed at Kroger's decision to stop accepting Visa credit cards at its Foodsco stores, it said in a statement. Quote, when our consumer choice is limited, nobody wins. Our goal is to protect the interests of our cardholders to ensure they can use their Visa credit cards whenever they shop. Visa remains committed to working with Kroger to reach a reasonable solution. Shares of Visa fell 3% Monday amid the news, while Kroger's stock closed up 3.5%. It shows a little bit of public sentiment against Visa there. The dispute between Kroger and Visa is just the latest in a string of battles over the tens of billions of dollars merchants pay each year in swipe fees. For example, the Supreme Court concluded this year that American Express rules that don't allow merchants to offer promotions or discounts on rival cards that charge them lower fees don't violate federal antitrust law. The Justice Department initially sued Amex and its larger rivals MasterCard and Visa, arguing that merchants had no real bargaining power when it came to using their payment services. A lower court had ruled that Amex's anti-steering rules stifled competition. Yeah. So, there you have it. I don't think this will be the last that we hear of this. That because there are cheaper options available to the public, that some people are going to start looking at some of the entrenched interests, such as Visa and even MasterCard and others, and saying, why are we accepting all of these fees when we could be paying a fraction of a penny if we were doing this transaction in Bitcoin Cash or Verge or any one of a number of other cryptocurrencies. You know, it's all about utility, kids. You know, when these tools are easier to use than and experience less friction than our current payment methods are going to lose out via attrition. That's all there is to it. You know, if I'm doing an electronic transfer with a Visa card or I'm doing an electronic transfer with my phone, the difference is nil. There's no real difference. Except for if I'm doing it with my phone, I could probably do it in ways where nobody even knows who the fuck I am. I can monkey around with things to break up the line of custody of things and make it to where nobody knows I'm using the phone. Just that there are funds being used on the phone to take funds from one place and put them somewhere else. That's all they'll know. Now, when I can have that kind of freedom versus a credit card that's associated with all of my personal information, and if Visa's databases are ever compromised, I'm completely fucked there because, of course, they'll have access to my data. Whereas, if they want to hack Bitcoin, they got to hack all of Bitcoin, and although Blockstream is working on it, I don't think that they are actually going to win in the long run. I think that too much of their conditions require way more friction be introduced and way more PETA be introduced to the situation of using Bitcoin. And I think the vast majority of the market's going to turn their nose up to it. I mean, really, when you can just post a public address and accept payments to it for a full week, cash out the funds at the end of the week, and probably even make money. And you know what? Even if you did lose money, think about it this way. You can write it off. It's a business expense. You're never going to lose so much money that you're going to die from it. For one, you don't have the transaction volume in any cryptocurrency to be in a significant enough volume that it's going to be a big chunk out of your ass if it does go down. However, there's also the potential that it'll go up, in which case you make additional profit on the transactions that you made in a cryptocurrency. Everybody wants to anticipate the worst case scenario. What about the best case scenario? Personally, when I look at the graphs and I look at the values of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies versus the US dollar over time, I think there's a pretty good possibility that any transactions that I do in Bitcoin will be worth more if I held them for like maybe a month. So like I did a Bitcoin transaction on the 2nd, or I accepted a transaction in Bitcoin for payment, right? I turn it around on the 29th, the 30th, and I sell it. I probably made money. I know I would have, over this last 30-day period, I probably would have made about 10-15%. So with that in mind, and all of the hoops and all the bullshit you have to go through to have a Visa terminal, why would you use Visa? I mean, big whoop-de-doo, you gotta wait 10 minutes for a confirmation. If you're living in the 21st century, you probably have online capability in your business. I don't give a fuck if you're like Jimmy Joe's or Burger King. Somebody could probably Skype you and say, hey, I want a Whopper with cheese, a large fry, and some chicken nuggets. I'll be there in about 15 minutes. They'll say, here, scan this address. You scan the address. Your amount is, $7.53. You type in that amount of Bitcoin or whatever cryptocurrency you want to use, or that they'll accept, and you click send, and it fucking goes to them. By the time you get there, you'll have your first confirmation. The food is yours. You pick it up, you walk back to your vehicle, and you leave. Or you go through the drive-thru and they hand it to you. You don't have to pay them. It's already paid for. It's already yours. If there's a question as to whether or not it's yours, maybe more than one person bought with Bitcoin Cash in that hour, you could show them the transaction ID on your wallet. Say, hey, check it out. This transaction. There it is. You got it. There's confirmations. Done and done. Why do people want to make that such a complicated thing? Why do they want us to make it such a complicated thing that we require proprietary hardware and proprietary software and all that other bullshit? Fuck you. This shit is meant to transmit money from one person to another, regardless of distance, regardless of location. and confirm within 10 minutes. And that's assuming, of course, you have the block space to fit all the transactions that happen within a 10-minute period, which we currently do not have on the Bitcoin network. Point being that that's how this shit's supposed to work. That's how it's designed to work. It's not designed to unburden you with a bunch of fucking proprietary hardware and proprietary software that you have no choice but to fucking rely on some third party to maintain it, or release you a next iteration of it, or tell you how to use it, limit how you can use it. That's not how this shit was meant to operate. Anyway, let's go ahead and throw back down into some music. And, I got some Voivod going in the background, and I think this is the appropriate song. Voivod, Cockroaches. Here we go. If I can rewind it. Oh, man. Kind of broke my program there for a moment. Anyway, here we go. Cockroaches, Voivod, here on Coin Metal. And that was Anthrax with Fight 'Em Till You Can't. And it is with that we are rounding up to the end of this episode. And I'd just like to re-emphasize that you are the market. How you decide to use your money is how the market will decide how to use its money. And there's really nothing anybody can do now to stop you from doing exactly that. You can move your money into mediums that aren't regulated or taxed in any way, shape, or form, and transact them with other people for goods and services or just other coins. And I expect that it's going to remain that way well into the future, because we're not the only ones doing this shit. And something to keep in mind is that I really believe that the only reason why we aren't seeing any real significant effort to throw the hammer down on cryptocurrency, any concerted effort rather, is that all of these people are already involved. They look at the returns and they can't help but get involved. They can see on the horizon that the end of a fiat currency, at least one, is coming. Because all fiat currencies have a limited life cycle. They have about 30 years before the vast majority of people are kind of wise to the idea that it's being debased out from under them. And by then they're transitioning to other means of transacting their monetary value, likely importing currencies of other countries that are holding value better than their own. But now that's no longer necessary. Now you can just convert it over to Dogecoin, and Dogecoin keeps value better than your money. It's a sad state of affairs, but it was brought on intentionally. And there has always been a desire to corral us into a one world currency that we would require some sort of mark on our body or some sort of chip in our hand in order to use. But the problem with that is that it would make everything that we do trackable, and not just us, everybody. Everybody. Let me say that again. Everybody. And so when you're thinking back on all the transactions that you've done that you would rather people not know about, well, you constitute a larger percentage of the population than you would ever believe possible. That you're doing commerce that's not on anybody's ledger all the fucking time. And they want to change that because they want to cut of that stuff. And that's the whole reason for maintaining things like altcoins. It's because it gives us an alternative should one road become corrupted. And many more, I believe, will come before we see an elimination or any kind of real effort towards limiting them. I mean, I think we'll continue to see hacks, but we have to remain vigilant. If we are to have this freedom, then we must win out this time. that we have to be keeping enough of our commerce in completely unregulated forms for the monetary value to be maintained within those realms. Because when it's in those realms, it's not collateral on anybody else's books but yours. When you've got them in a cold wallet, or you've got them even in a live wallet in most cases, those aren't collateral on anybody's balance sheet. That money is yours. And that's something that they want to divest you of. They want you to have to use third parties just to spend your money. You know, we're coming back onto an age where people are seeking to create an internet where they don't experience the friction of the NSA spying up their ass and the FCC limiting what they can have on their website and what kind of services they could provide. People are sick and tired of that shit. And enough people are getting sick of it and learning ways around it that I think that we're going to hit a critical mass at some point within the next 10 years, I would imagine, where there are going to be enough people that have transitioned from doing simple coding to more complex programming. And they're going to be looking into things like that, the whole setup with regard to the TCP/IP stack and other communication protocols, and crafting out their own backbone that can be transmitted with consumer goods that they can probably get off the shelf, and establishing their own networks that are entirely outside of the control of anybody. I imagine that's already happening, and I don't think it'll be too much longer before that becomes a significant part of the internet. But we'll wait and see. Get to work, motherfuckers. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and close it out. We will be back again on Monday at 8 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And so until then, I'd like y'all to trade safe. Do your homework. And watch out for your own bunghole, because nobody else is going to do it for you. As far as a last dance is concerned, I haven't actually picked one. So we're going to go to our customary fast break song for this particular occasion, because it's been a while since we played it too, and I really kind of like it. So get all the way down to it here. S-Y, 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 there. S-U, S-Y, there we go. And so here it is, System of a Down, Bounce, here on Coin Metal. Thank you very, very much for listening. I certainly do appreciate the support. You can find me on Twitter and also on YouTube. I've been really fast about getting these up, so you should expect this episode, if you missed any of it, up on my YouTube channel within probably by tomorrow morning. So y'all have an excellent weekend. Good night.